From the Joy News Center. This is News at 8.
Now, welcome to the Primetime News Bulletin here on Joy News. On Multi TV, coming up, Chief Executive of Treblinka Pharmaceuticals, the company embroiled in a tiff for the Food and Drugs Authority in police custody. President Mahama cited in attempts to intervene in debt recovery efforts by Merchant Bank. Government to renegotiate agreements with especially multinational firms in mining to stem massive foreign exchange flight. Parliament defers report to adopt petroleum agreement between GNPC and AGM Petroleum. We also have sports, business, showbiz, and international news all coming up. Stay tuned.
News at 8 with Israel Lai.
In our very first story, government is set to renegotiate its agreement with multinational firms, especially those into mining, in a bid to stem the massive flight of foreign exchange from the country, often through illegal means. President John Mahama made the announcement when a high-level panel on illicit financial flows led by former South African President Thabo Mbeki called on him at the Flagstaff House. Gifty Andoapia has more.
The illicit outflows are said to be the main channel used by companies and organizations to smuggle massive amounts of cash and avoid paying taxes. It was disclosed at the meeting that Africa loses about $100 billion each year through this channel by companies, especially multinationals, often seeking to repatriate their profit. The high-level panel on illicit financial flows, a 12-member committee, is therefore in the country as part of continental efforts to end the forex flight, with a focus on countries with large extractive industries, as well as post-conflict countries, as these have been identified as the most vulnerable. A trustee of the committee, Mojank Gumbi, indicated that pricing of equipment imported and nature of concessions granted makes it easy for the multinationals to carry out such malpractices.
In North Africa, as President Vic says, we visited the main issue there is the repatriation of stolen funds. We find that there are so many gaps in the international legal system. When you then have identified the money where it is and all that, and you try to repatriate it, it's almost impossible. So essentially the panel is here to say, how can we help you? How do we keep this money? The volumes are such that we would have paid off all our foreign debt.
Former South African President Thabo Mbeki was hopeful the regional engagement, especially with the private sector and civil society, will be beneficial to the cause.
We came to Ghana because we thought we should hold that regional consultation for the West Africa and Central Africa here in Accra. It's also been arranged that we would also meet some state institutions, or Ghana state institutions, this afternoon. That are relevant to this thing, which is very good. We welcome that. So, but that will happen this afternoon. So it will also give us a chance to have a look at what's happening in Ghana with regard to this, and pick up some of their experiences in terms of dealing with this.
President John Mahama said economic pressures on Ghana, coupled with the country's bid to attract foreign investors, may have contributed to its vulnerability, but added government has already put in measures to curtail this.
Going through the process of renegotiating them to make them fairer than they have been, especially the extractive industry, because of the destruction to the environment and all the other, adverse effects, that they have on the atmosphere. And we're competing in, cutting, each other to draw more investment. But I guess that we are the wiser now, and so we're looking at some of these agreements before. There are retention accounts that the companies insist on having, and they hold these retention accounts outside the country. I mean, we have first-class banks here there's no reason why they cannot hold those retention accounts locally, so that those reserves are able to stimulate, the local economy. The transfer pricing is one of the issues that we're trying to do. Fixing the legislation, to prevent transfer pricing and deal hard with transfer pricing. We're also fixing the legislation to do with capital gains tax.
25 countries within West and Central Africa are represented here in Accra for a meeting with the delegation, while similar meetings have been held in Zambia for Southern and Eastern Africa and in Tunisia for Northern Africa to create awareness on illicit financial flow in Africa. Gifty Andopia, Joy News, Flagstaff House.
Now, Parliament has deferred the report of the Committee on Mines and Energy on the petroleum agreement between government, the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, and AGM Petroleum Ghana Limited. The House, meanwhile, continued debate on the 2014 budget presented by the Finance Minister early last month.
The petroleum agreement was deferred after members identified some errors with the report and tasked the chairman of the Business Committee to correct the errors and resubmit the report. The AGM-GNPC agreement has been criticized, with think tanks such as the African Center for Energy and Petroleum calling for its suspension. The ACEP is worried the country could be shortchanged by the potential abuse of Ghanaian company principle to justify a patronage system in the oil and gas industry. As the company becomes Ghanaian, if it is incorporated in Ghana and with a minimum of 51% ownership, is held as such. It wants Parliament to thoroughly examine the petroleum agreement, especially the beneficial owners of AGM Petroleum Ghana Limited and the financial and technical capacities of the companies named in the agreement. On the 2014 budget, MP for Subin Isaac Osei highlighted some errors he says will need to be corrected.
As you are all aware, the plan on which the 2014 budget is supposed to be based does not exist. It is not yet completed. And there is an admission made by the Minister of Finance in the introduction to the budget. The Minister says that the budget will be finished in due course. So what plan is this budget based on? In 2013, we know that the budget was based on the GSGDA 2010-2013. The minister says so. Mr. Speaker, it will be useful for the minister perhaps at a future date soon to come back to this House and perhaps tweak some aspects of the budget to bring it in sync with the new plan, the GSGDA 2, when completed.
Mr. Speaker, the area for us to look at as a parliament is to do a serious and a critical thinking as to how and where this revenue will be generated and also mobilized to be able to finance the so many developmental projects that we so need in this country.
The following papers: the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, the annual report of the Public Procurement Authority for the year 2011, and the Auditor General's report on the accounts of district assemblies for the year which ended in December 2012, are expected to be laid in Parliament.
The Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice wants government to intervene in the shortage of antiretrovirals, which has resulted in the ration of medication to the more than 200,000 HIV/AIDS sufferers. Deputy Commissioner Joseph Whittle says government will have to step in to save the situation. The Commission's call comes as the world commemorates World AIDS Day.
Although the prevalence rate of HIV/AIDS is said to be going down, the figures are still alarming. The 2012 statistics on HIV/AIDS shows that over 230 persons are living with the disease in the country, and more than 20,000 of them being children. 11,000 deaths were also recorded at the end of the year. Reports that the National AIDS Control Program is currently rationing ART drugs to persons living with the disease due to lack of adequate funds comes as a major source of worry to Shraj.
Government must begin to seriously consider how it can come in. Whoever is on HIV drugs must get the drugs on time and we owe it to the people to those most at-risk populations to allow them to get what they deserve, to live, because it's a rights issue. It's a live or die issue for them, and we need to approach it from that angle.
With the stigma and discrimination of persons living with HIV/AIDS still endure, STRA says it is collaborating with the Ghana AIDS Commission to protect and promote the rights of sufferers.
The fact that you have HIV doesn't mean that you should be prevented from having normal social life, among others. If that is the case, that amounts to a human rights violation. And this commission, through the web-based platform, would be able to better protect their rights. Our staff will now get in touch with the HIV person who has difficulties due to stigma, take down the complaint, and then the process begins from there.
Meanwhile, the Commission has also launched its 2013 Human Rights and Integrity Week. The week is to highlight the importance of human dignity and justice and also interact with relevant stakeholders on ways of improving and championing human rights. The celebrations will be climaxed with the International Anti-Corruption Day and International Human Rights Day, which falls on December 9 and 10, which also coincides with the 20th anniversary of STRAJ.
Now, Joy FM has obtained documents, it says, indicates President John Mahama may have intervened in attempts by Merchant Bank, whose takeover by Fortis Equity Fund has dominated public discussions lately, to recover monies owed it by its largest debtor, Engineers and Planners, a company owned by his brother, Ibrahim Mahama. The struggling state-owned bank is said to have been owed some $38 million. Now, joining me in the studio now is Evans Mensah, who has been following the story, and he has some details which he's going to be sharing with us. Good evening to you, Evan. So what do we know about the president's supposed intervention?
Indeed, it's good to say supposed, but what we know for sure is that he indeed intervened. Okay. And that intervention was triggered by a petition that was written to him by lawyers for engineers and planners. But the more concrete intervention had indeed preceded the petition. Had happened.
So even before the petition went in.
Yeah, and I'm saying that according to a document that we cited, written by the board of Merchant Bank, and this is the trail of what happened. The Tonelitha, if you know Tonelitha, is currently the president's lawyer.
But was the president's lawyer during the election petition?
Good. Then he was the lawyer for Engineers and Planners. And let's note that Engineers and Planners is owned by the president's brother, Ibrahim Mahama. Merchant Bank, we know, had gone after Ibrahim Mahama for him to repay an estimated $38 million he owed the bank. And the bank says, well, if you don't pay that money, we are going to go to court. We're going to exercise our right to go to court and get that money from you. Then that triggers a petition from Tonelitha, who's representing Engineers and Planners, to the president. And this was sent on the 4th of July 2012 to the presidency, in which, among other things, he accuses the board chairperson of pursuing some agenda to collapse an indigenous company. Again, they explained that they admit in that statement, though, in that petition, that they're having difficulties with paying up the loan that they owe them. On the back of that petition, then the president's secretary, Badu Mensah,
at the time, let's note that at the time, President John Mahama was vice president.
On the 4th of July, yes. On the 4th of July, the president then was President John Mills, and President Mahama was a vice. At that time, the petition went in. So, the president's secretary then writes to Merchant Bank, asking them to respond to the concerns raised by Engineers and Planners in their petition to them. And this was on the 3rd of September. Badu Mensah wrote a letter on the 3rd of September. They had received the petition on the 13th of July. Okay, and note that by the 3rd of September, the President Mahama had then taken over substantive precedent from John Mills. And then the board says, okay, let's respond. The board responded to them in a 10-page document. In the 10-page document, they then refer the president. The point we're making is that this matter is not new. It had come before the presidency before. And decided and
there had been presidential intervention
before this petition had come in. And they point to the fact that there had been reports already made, following which between 2010 and 2011, a series of meetings had happened at the castle with President Mahama himself, where they were asked, President Mahama was questioning the board chairperson, Marian Bano, why Merchant Bank was refusing to give engineers and planners funds for them to meet their operational expenses. So the board refers them to those meetings. The second meeting was held. At this time, President Mills himself was in attendance, including Vice President John Mahama then. At this very meeting also, the board was asked to explain their position on the engineers and planners debt. So all these meetings had to do with engineers and planners. The first meeting had been triggered by John Mahama himself, brother of Ibrahim Mahama, the company he was asking questions on their behalf. So that is what we know. That's where the trail ends.
Okay, so what we're looking at is a potential conflict of interest situation.
True, potential conflict of interest. Some people will say possible abuse of office, because yes, you are the president. Why would you sit in a meeting when you know your brother is owing a state bank a huge amount of money? And let's also note that in that same board statement to the president, they make it very clear that his brother's debt to Merchant Bank alone is 30% of the bank's 50% non-performing loans. And they make it very clear that if they don't recover that debt, Merchant Bank will collapse. And if Merchant Bank collapses, they spell it out. What it means is that workers' pension funds down the drain. Workers, again, who have SNIT contributions have been kept in the bank down the drain. And so you don't want to let this money go because he's your brother. We need to get this money. Okay. And note that now Merchant Bank is being sold to Fortis.
Exactly, and which is really why this whole issue has come up. It has to do with the sale of Merchant Bank to Fortis, or the takeover of Merchant Bank by Fortis, and which issue has become topical, because there are those who believe that there may be some underhand dealings in the fact that the state, which owns through SNIT, owns a 90% stake, it may not be getting a fair deal in this arrangement. Now, what has been the reaction of the presidency to all of this?
Well, we spoke to Information Minister Mahama Yarega, instructed to note that he didn't deny that this meeting happened. He rationalized it. And his point is that, listen, well, starting point, this was triggered by a petition. And anybody can petition the president. So if the president decides to intervene because of the petition, no problem. Our point to him was, well, the meetings that the board was referring to had happened before the petition had gone in. So what's your explanation for that? So, well, it's still a Ghanaian, and so if there are concerns why a huge company like Engineers and Planners, and a huge company Engineers and Planners, another secret I'll let you in shortly, because this is a series you're going to run. We have documents to show that Engineers and Planners make $4 million a month. And there was a point where they came to an agreement with Merchant Bank that says that, okay, we know you make $4 million a month, you owe us so much, we are going to take $2.5 million. You know, when you owe a bank, the bank can tell you how much they're going to take from how much you make. We're going to take $2.5 million from how much you earn a month. You can keep the rest to run your operations. And indeed, that happened for a while until that stopped. And on the back of that, then they decided to go hard, and then this petition had gone in. So, the Information Minister's point is that, listen, anybody can petition the president, even when we established the point that this happened before the petition had gone in. He still insisted on that same principle, that yes, the president was intervening. Again, the question is, the president knew the man he was speaking for is his brother. Couldn't he have just recused himself? Because we know in cases such as this, you simply delegate. It says, well, the president didn't consider the fact that he was his brother. He was simply doing his job as president then. So that is where we are. Government denies, though, categorically, that in those meetings, never did President John Mahama ask Merchant Bank not to recover the debt from his brother. Indeed, he assures the nation that debt will be recovered.
Thank you very much. That was Evans Mensah. Evans Mensah is with Joy FM, and he's been following this issue about the supposed intervention of President John Mahama in this issue about Merchant Bank and attempts to recover debts. Now, some news just coming through is that the Chief Executive of Treblinka Pharmaceutical, which is involved in a tiff with the Food and Drugs Authority and who was in police custody before we started the bulletin, he has been released. We have details coming up after this break. Now, documents relating to some compensation paid to persons who lived around the Volta Lake during the construction of the Kosomo Dam could not be provided by the representative of the Ministry of Finance, Kwejo Ewuku Piasa, when he appeared before the sole commissioner for judgment, Justice Yawa Apal. Kwejo Piasa, head of external resource mobilization at the ministry, was to submit documents relating to claimants that had been paid certain sums at the time of the dam's construction. Other documents on the land valuation report are expected to be supplied by the Lands Commission when its officers appear on Tuesday, December 3. Another case between the Registrar General and the Kojog Abank Survey Company was adjourned to December 11. The Minister for Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation has warned teachers not to personalize the Better Ghana laptops it's been distributing to schools. He was speaking at a Durban held in Accra to present about 5,000 of the laptops to some selected senior high schools in the Greater Accra region.
The Greater Accra region has become the 7th region to benefit from the distribution of the laptops, which will go to 125 private and public senior high schools. Deputy Regional Minister Isaac Nijangma Vanderpoy called on students to make maximum use of the laptops for their own benefit.
The world has become a global village. Thus, it behoves on all of us to ensure that every Ghanaian receives quality information and communication technology education to make our human resource competitive on the global market. These computers are being given to you to enhance the teaching of ICT in your schools and to enable you acquire basic ICT knowledge before you come out of school.
The Minister of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, speaking at the Durban, said the laptops must under no circumstance leave their computer laboratories. He said government was also in talks with some IT experts to develop some software to make learning easier for the students.
Currently, we are working on a project that will support the teaching of physics, chemistry, biology, English, mathematics. When it is done, we'll load these softwares on the computers and students can just go log in and then be able to interactively work through the curriculum of the various courses.
The students were happy with the laptops, which they say would add to the few they already have.
The computers that we have, they are not up to number. So when it's time for ICT lessons, some class, you have to wait for other classes to finish before we can go there. But with this laptop, I think learning will be effective now with the ICT subjects.
To go a long way to help the school in ICT studies, because in recent times we've really had need of a facility like this, and this is just the best opportunity to benefit from.
The ministry is hoping to distribute a total of 40,000 laptops to 780 schools when the distribution of the year is completed on December 9.
The Whole Nursing Training College is now offering registered community nursing as a course. It follows the approval of the Ministry of Health, Nurses and Midwives Council and the National Accreditation Board. The first batch of 51 students enrolled in September 2013 and will complete the course in 3 years. The principal, Josephine Ansu-Jiabo, announced this at the school's matriculation ceremony.
The Whole Nursing Training College, which has played a major role in producing health workers for Ghana, was established in the year 1964 as a general nursing school. The program was changed to community enrolled nursing in the following year. 9 years after its establishment, a 2-year program, General Enrolled Nursing, was introduced with a different administrative structure. However, in October 2007, for efficient and effective use of infrastructure and resources, the Ministry of Health, through its educational reforms, merged both schools to become the Nursing Training College on the same campus under one administration. Josephine Ansu-Jiabo, who matriculated the students, called on them to uphold the integrity of the nursing profession.
Choosing to enroll into this college, you have chosen to join a profession with ethical components that is devoted to the promotion of human and social welfare. The goal of nursing is to use a humanistic approach to implement preventive and therapeutic interventions to assist the individual, family, and community in attaining maximum health. Thus, you must do whilst you maintain the dignity and rights of your clients as you pursue nursing education.
She mentioned overcrowding of classrooms and inadequate residential accommodation for students as major problems confronting them, as a result of which only 22% of over 1,500 student population live on the campus. The school admitted 378 students for the 2013-2014 academic year, with 51 offering registered community nursing, 229 reading registered general nursing, and the rest, 98, enrolled for community health nursing. Komlados report for Joy News.
The Badu Health Center in the Tyne district of the Brunhafu region is in dire need of infrastructure expansion. Correspondent Nestor Kafui Ajuma, who visited the center, says antenatal unit, which was recently constructed by the Beduman Rural Bank, is already showing signs of dilapidation.
The Badu Health Center was relocated from Badu to its present site in 1997 and has since not seen any major development apart from this pavilion built by Beduman Rural Bank for expectant mothers. This container serves as records room annex because the original one has been filled to capacity. This collapsed structure was a sanitation facility for patients who visit the health center. Having collapsed after a heavy downpour some weeks ago, this makeshift structure is now being used by patients who wish to attend to nature's call. Even though the health center can boast of 16 medical staff, only 2 semi-detached bungalows are available. The situation has forced most of the workers to stay far from the health center, making it difficult for them to attend to emergencies. Margaret Amour is the only midwife at the Badu Health Center.
Badu Health Center is a health center which is the second largest health center in the whole district, at the Tyne district. And as I'm talking, the health center is very small in the sense that the people coming to the health center is much more bigger than the health center itself. So if we are pleading, if government can do something about the health center to enlarge it or establish it a bit for us so that it can accommodate the people who usually come to the clinic.
The center has meanwhile taken delivery of some chairs donated by the Beduman Rural Bank Ladies Association to augment seating in the outpatient department, which hitherto had just 2 long benches which were inadequate. The association also presented washing bowls, plastic brooms, as well as toiletries and consumables to enhance operations at the health center. Nestor Kafui Ajuma's report for Joy News.
Right, so we're bringing you an update on the story we brought to you earlier. The breaking news is that the Chief Executive of Treblinka Pharmaceuticals Limited, Samuel Amu Tobing, who was arrested by the police earlier, or who was in police custody some hours ago, has been released. He's said to have been picked up this afternoon by the Economic and Organized Crime Office and sent to the Nima police station in Accra. And these are visuals at the Nima police station, where we're told that a number of members of staff gathered at the Nima police station to put pressure on the police to get the man released. The CEO of Treblinka Pharmaceuticals, Samuel Amu Tobing, we're learning that has since been released. We do not know the details or the basis for his release, but we're told by a public relations officer, Albert Kwabena Jumfo, he was of the opinion that the CEO's arrest was in connection with a clash between some Treblinka workers and Yoko a week ago. Now, what we're also learning is that some EUCO officials who were there at the Nima police station, where the CEO of Treblinka was held earlier, say they are going to speak on the matter tomorrow at a news conference. So that's the very latest we have. It's that the chief executive of Treblinka Pharmaceuticals, that company that has been involved in some standoff with the Food and Drugs Authority, has been released from the custody of the Nima police station, where he was held about some hours ago. We're taking a break. When we come back, we bring you business news.
So as always, we bring you what's making news in the world of business. I'm Abigail Adumakwenchi. Now, the Minister of Food and Agriculture, Clement Kofi-Badu, says Ghana's food security resilience is under threat due to high levels of post-harvest losses. Addressing farmers at a forum in Accra, he said though the country is now self-sufficient in the production of major staples, about 700,000 worth of agricultural produce is wasted every year.
Food is abundant in Ghana, as is evident in the quantity of maize, rice and cassava that are found across the length and breadth of the country. According to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, the country is now self-sufficient in the production of major staples, with the self-sufficiency gap closing from 60 to 30%. However, the boost in agricultural productivity has highlighted the extent of post-harvest losses.
Sustained productivity is challenged with climate change vulnerabilities, underrate fed agriculture, as well as high post-harvest losses, which stand at about 30%, and inefficient processing and value addition. This can negatively affect our food security resilience in the country.
The local demand for food produce is at an all-time high, with a wealthier and expanding population. For instance, Ghana is among the highest fish-consuming countries in the world, with each person consuming between 23 and 25 kilograms of fish a year, compared to a global average of 13 kilograms.
Our fish demand for 2012 was estimated at 968,000 metric tons, whilst our production was 486,000 metric tons, representing only about 50.2% of our requirement. A total of 175,000 metric tons of fish was imported at an estimated $157 million to make up for part of the deficit. While as a nation we have not been able to meet our fish requirements from local production, it is estimated that post-harvest loss accounts for 30% of local production.
At the Farmers' Forum on post-harvest losses, the Minister of Food and Agriculture, Clement Kofi-Badu, said understanding the dynamics of food waste in Ghana is key in tackling food security.
You don't just set a target without doing the fundamentals. So I called upon the Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, in Ghana, the Wageningen University, which is very strong in post-harvest technology, and then the African Union also offered to provide some funds. And that team, which has worked for the past 2 months in Ghana, have finalized their report. So after the report, then we'll be able to sit down now and draw a plan and target the various crops for post-harvest loss reduction.
Clement Kofi-Badu lamented some causes of post-harvest losses are outside the scope of his ministry, making efforts at reducing post-harvest losses more challenging.
Now, the Commercial Court 2 in Kumasi has adjourned to December 5 the case between the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly and Freco FD Limited over control of the Kejetia bus terminal. Freco FD owner Frida Darko filed an order of interlocutory injunction restraining the KMA from interfering with their work as managers of the terminal.
A couple of weeks ago, the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly terminated the contract between the Assembly and private company Freco FD Enterprise Limited to manage the Kejetia bus terminal. The Assembly said Freco FD had failed to live up to expectation under a management contract. It therefore forcefully took over management of the terminal. Freco FD Limited deemed the takeover unlawful and filed an injunction asking the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly to vacate the terminal. In court, the plaintiff objected before the defendant could move the motion to the effect that the defendant was in contempt of court. But the lawyer of the defendant, Thaddeus Sori, argued that there was no issue of contempt arising in the view of the fact that the defendant has an application for stay of execution of order. The order was held in abeyance and the case was adjourned to Thursday, December 5th, 2013. The legal counsel of the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly spoke to Joy News.
Now, before we could move the application, the plaintiff's lawyer took out an objection to the effect that the defendant was in contempt, so could not file processes. Now, we responded to the objection. The objection was not well laid before the court. And secondly, there was no issue of contempt arising, especially in view of the fact that the defendant had an application for stay of execution of the order. And that meant that the order was held in abeyance. And the defendant was not required to obey.
Seth Ofori is a security coordinator of Freco FD Limited.
When they came and possibly ejected us from the terminal, we filed a motion at the court, and the court ruled that we should vacate the place by giving us an interlocutory injunction to vacate the place, but they defied the order. So, as we all know, the court started them from contempt, which is pending.
Away from that, the makers of Bailey's Irish Cream, Guinness Ghana Breweries Limited, has launched the new Bailey's bottle. According to marketing director Agnes Essa, the new design evokes the brand's modern feminine sense of style and celebrates the spirit of modern womanhood.
As a mostly women-targeted drink, its unique combination of the best Irish cream, Irish whiskey and Ghanaian cocoa makes Bailey's Original Irish Cream the perfect blend of soft and strong, delicate and powerful quality. The new sleeker bottle has been heightened and the shoulders lifted for a more elegant and striking profile. Speaking at the Bailey's VIP event, marketing director Agnes Essa outlined the concept for the initiative.
This is part of a global initiative. All over the world, 2,000 women drink Bailey's every minute of every day. So we just want to ensure that the experience is good.
She added the company is confident that this, coupled with the same great tasting liquid, will not only have more impact but also affirms Bailey's position as a modern drink for the modern woman.
Bailey's exists to inspire women to shine. And it's always important for brands to renovate and reinvent themselves. And we want to present women with a beautiful, sleek-looking bottle that they can be proud to hold when they're having a Bailey's.
The occasion was also used to celebrate two Ghanaian women, Shirley Frimpel Manson, a movie producer, and Constance Swanika, CEO of Ascent and Arts, for their roles in empowering other women to attain greater heights.
We'll be bringing you some more business reports. Sports is up next for now.
Time to chase news that's making rounds in the world of sports, and the local Black Stars are set to intensify preparations for next year's Championship of African Nations scheduled for South Africa. The latest in their camp is a lining up of a friendly game with their Malian counterparts. Ghana's domestic national team, the local Black Stars, will face Mali in a friendly match on December 22 in Accra as part of preparations for the Championship of African Nations in South Africa next year. The chairman of the local Black Stars Management Committee, Fred Papo, confirmed to Joy Sports that the Mali friendly forms part of the final phase of preparations for the Chan tournament. Despite his engagements with the full Black Stars, head coach Maxwell Konedu has been busy working in the background. The team will camp for about a week in Namibia before moving to Johannesburg for a few days and finally moving to Bloemfontein for the competition. Ghana will compete in Group C with Ethiopia, Libya and Congo Republic. The competition will commence on January 11, 2014 and end in February 2014. Now, Joy Sports has secured the exclusive television rights for the 2013 FIFA World Club Championships, which will commence on the 11th of December through to the 21st. The 10-day club fiesta will be live on the Joy Sports channel and Multi TV. Ghana's domestic national team, the local Black Stars, will face Mali in a friendly match on December 22 in Accra as part of preparations for the Championship of African Nations in South Africa next year. The chairman of the local Black Stars Management Committee, Fred Papo, confirmed to Joy. We'll bring you that story in a bit. Before that, Yaya Toure has won the 2013 BBC African Football of the Year award. The Ivory Coast and Manchester City midfielder, who had been nominated each in the past 4 years, beat Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Victor Moses, John Bikelobi and Jonathan Petropa to win this year's crown. He spoke shortly after this.
Entertainment critic Francis Doku has called the bluff of Ghanaian dancehall artist Shatta Wale to sue him if he wishes. They're later threatening to sue the Ace critic for a piece he wrote about his performance at the recently held Big Eruption concert in Accra, which featured international R&B star Akon.
It all started a few days after the Big Eruption concert in Accra. Dancehall artist Samini was rated the best performer of the night by most of the audience, even though his colleague Shatta Wale was the toast of the night. But it appears an article, Samini Floors Shatta Wale, authored by Francis Doku, a columnist for the graphic Showbiz, infuriated. Appearing on the white carpet on Joy News, however, Francis Doku said he's not moved by the legal threat.
I went to a show and what I saw was what I wrote. I wouldn't write anything different to give me the opportunity again. He was the most expectant artist on the day, on the night. You know, but I mean, in terms of performance, he wasn't the best performer on the night. But the point about not writing, of course, if I go to a show, I'm writing and I'll write. Okay. If he has an issue, he should go to court.
With the festive season just around the corner, Showbiz has gathered Shatta Wale has a number of concerts lined up. Well, what remains to be seen is if Francis Doku will go ahead to review Shatta's performances and if the musician will indeed carry through his threat to sue him when he does.
Right, and that's it for Showbiz.
Showbiz was brought to you